Hello, good evening and welcome to News at 10 on TV3 with me, Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up, here are the major highlights of today's happenings. President Akufo-Addo says Ghana will no longer pursue the IMF program when it ends in April 2018. He said Ghana must mobilize its own resources and go beyond aid. The president was reacting to questions at the first encounter with the media after 6 months in office. The Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill and Zongo Development Fund will have been laid and read for the first time in Parliament, but the minority side of the House raised objection to the fact that the bills have not been gazetted yet were laid before the House. Now, during today's encounter with the media, President Akufo-Addo indicated that he was not worried at the Galamsey fight, saying that he may not necessarily stand on the ticket for 2020. But will he run for the second term in 2020? We'll be finding out more. And star witness in the case involving the state and former national coordinator of the Youth Employment Program, Abuga Pele and Philip Asibit, said he has been receiving death threats. Lawyer leading in evidence chief for CEO of Goodwill International Group, Philip Asibit, who has been charged for not rendering any service to the nation, and prayed the court for the order to identify such individuals. So those are some of the major highlights for today, and the time now for the big one. Thank you very much for staying with us. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Now, moments ago, there was news that the Ghana National Fire Service has managed to put out fire that engulfed a stationary office within the Job 600 building near Parliament. The fire service says the extent of damage will not affect members of Parliament's work when they return on Wednesday morning. The Public Relations Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, Prince Billy Anaglate, has been speaking to the media shortly after firemen were able to put out the fire.
Cocooned in the office of the First Deputy Speaker, and we're working on the review of the standing orders. And then around, we had just indicated to ourselves that we're going to close at 7. And around 6:20, 6:30, somebody burst in and told us that we needed to step out because smoke was belching in the middle ranks of the tower block. So we all had to scamper out, and then we hurried downstairs. Fortunately, we were able to use the lifts, and it told that it wasn't, a dire situation. And getting down and looking up, we saw that smoke indeed was coming out of the 10th floor, the east wing. The fire officers who were around rushed the scene. Another unfortunate development was that the fire tenders, which first came in, could not assess the place because the tube here, when they had to drive under it, it became difficult because of the gadgets on top of the fire tenders. So the first one that endeavored to do it had some damage on the vehicle. And so we had to advise the rest of them to use the back gate.
It has affected the kitchenette as well, where the printer is. But you realize it's coming from where the photocopy and the printer is. And then the ceiling, those are the things affected. And everything is under control. What we are doing now is to ventilate the place because the whole place is smoke locked. Okay. So we have ventilated. We are making sure that the whole place is clear before we leave the place. The smoke detectors were all working. The extinguishers that we even use in putting out, they were all working. So I think anybody working in that premises should rest assured that they are all protected.
Well, so that montage tells you what our next big topic will be, the presidential encounter which took place earlier today. So President Akufo-Addo says the success of his administration will largely depend on government's ability to deal with the issues of unemployment. Speaking at a media engagement on the first 6 months of his stewardship, the president was happy about measures initiated to revive the economy.
The media encounter with the president gave him the opportunity to take stock of the first 6 months of his administration and also offer himself for media scrutiny. President Akufo-Addo was confident government is on the right track with policies to improve living conditions of the people.
That the success or otherwise of my administration will be judged largely on job creation. I launched the National Entrepreneurship and Innovations Plan, which is an innovative scheme under the Business Development Ministry to help startups at the difficult early stages of setting up businesses.
On Galamsey, the president reiterated his resolve to end the menace.
This phenomenon threatens the future of our nation. I believe that the time has come to do something about it. And within the confines of the law, what is acceptable behavior by governments, I intend to mobilize all the resources that government has at its disposal to bring this phenomenon to an end.
The media engagement, according to organizers, is the first of two within the year.
All right, so we are going to be subjecting some of the questions that were asked and the answers that came forth from the president to some scrutiny and analysis here on News at 10. I've been joined in studio by two guests. I'm sure they are not new to you. Dr. H.S. Ikanku is a communications expert and a lecturer as well on my extreme left. And then also Kweku Botre. He is a broadcast journalism lecturer at NAFTI and actually also practices, and he's a researcher as well. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay, to start with, Doc,
yeah.
What would your rating be from on a score of 0 to 10, the entire program? What would it be?
Oh, wow. I think that's very difficult because you need to consider a whole lot of things.
Yes.
On the side of the journalist, on the side of the president, and all of that. So, I mean, I think it was average. I think it was average.
It was average.
Yeah, I think it was average. Maybe the whole event, maybe a B.
The essence and relevance of the program.
Yeah, I think in terms of the essence and the relevance, maybe a B. Okay. I would put it there because, I think the president was confident. He was in control of the event. He didn't look aloof or lost or anything. Okay. He looked very assertive, to a large extent. The communication, no, not the communication minister, the information minister. Yes, this was his first time doing this, but he had a bit of problems managing the journalists in terms of keeping them in line with the timing and all of that. Wasn't too aware of some of their names. I don't know if he should have been, but then generally I think it's an insightful event. Contributing to our democracy. It opens up the presidency from the previous days when the presidency was a very mythic event. It reduces the myth of the presidency and brings them to a floor where they are subjected to questions, and we get to get an insight into the mind of the president.
Let me bring in Kweku Botre now. You are a journalism lecturer, a broadcast journalism lecturer. What would your assessment be of the questions that came from our colleagues?
Okay, so Martin, we've done this before, ranking journalists, the question that they asked. That was last year when President Mahama met the press. And we have a criteria on which we base our ranking on. We first look at relevance of the question that is being asked, specificity, specific question, you know, and then we also look at criteria such as, can you help me?
In terms of the quality of the question, the standard or the quality.
Standard or quality of the question. So in terms of relevance, we are looking at 4 main issues. One, what are the indicators of a relevant question? We look at the question, is it of public interest? Is it something that has a lot of impact? How many people? Because you can go and ask a question as a journalist.
There's just 2 people.
Yeah, in front of my house there's a pothole, so president come and do it, that kind of thing. So we are looking at impact. We are looking at, is it a question that attracted some controversy or some debate? That means people are much more interested. So on the score of relevance, we look at that. Then when it comes to specificity, we are looking at, was your question straightforward? You know, some people can ask double-barreled question and politicians get away with it because they choose which one to answer. They usually will go for the easier one. And especially in this engagement where you have only one chance, you don't have a follow-up. It means that you have to be very, very specific with your question and give it direction and punch. So specificity, we're looking at focus of your question, and we're looking at whether it was a one-issue question, not double-barreled, that will give the politicians the opportunity to run away with it. Then we're also looking at the standard of the question. You know, as journalists, we want to do some research into the question and give it some punch. So what is the background of the question you're asking? You know, do you have some statistics to support the question? And some of them did, you know, by giving statistics and stuff like that. It gives it direction and punch that a politician has no way to run away but to answer the question.
And so if you put it in question, in context, so from the very first question to the last, we'll look at the answers that came from the presidency, the composure, and the context in which the president chose to answer some of them. We also know that he called on his ministers to also help in fine-tuning some of the answers that we got. But how would you score the journalists? Say, on a scale of 0 to 10, where would your scorecard be placed?
Okay, you are talking about the whole process because we are actually ranking
the questions. You're looking at just the questions.
Yeah, actually, we both. I mean, this is an exercise that we both did.
Because
you're both media scholars, and we teach journalism. So we're not really interested in the governance and the energy experts can look at the president's answer and that kind of stuff. But we are media guys, so contributing to media.
The effort of the media rather than just what's coming from. But it is what we put out that would, you know, attract that kind of answer that we want.
Yeah, so it's very important.
That's why we need to look at what we are putting, the question we are asking.
But anyway, so what we did.
Then let's look at the questions in general. Yes. What would your breakdown of the questions be? Were they relevant? Did they really bother on issues that the everyday Ghanaian was interested in?
Yeah, so I mean, Kweku has done a great job, and we met this afternoon and kind of did this collaborative project. So he's broken down, I mean, the criteria, you know, that we use to assess it. And like I said, the whole goal is to contribute to the media space, to monitor, contribute, and to help to improve this particular exercise. You know, so you take one question, for instance, maybe let's even take the issue with the award. Okay, let's just take that.
The second question.
The second question. I mean, you take that question, you see, because the thing is that we just don't want to be blabbering, you know, and be pontificating without any systematic, you know, reasons to substantiate what we're doing. So you look at the relevance and you look at the public interest, you know, of the gender award. You see, it's not. I mean, we all understand gender and we respect all of that. But you see, it's not about gender, it's about the award, you see. And I don't think there was a lot of public interest regarding. Of course, some media was covered here and there, but the interest was not as large scale and as all-encompassing as some of the major issues of national interest that we had. So that's one. You look at the debate. I mean, there was no debate about this. Of course, a few people would debate on your morning shows, or did he deserve it or not? But it was just limited to that. I mean, compare it to the other issues like Galamsey and some of those.
So the Galamsey question specifically was necessary of the time,
Well, remember, it was not just about Galamsey. It was about whether the president, how committed was he ready to commit himself. And I think he had stated that already, to the extent that he even said he was ready to put his presidency on the line for that. I think the question was about that. It was not about Galamsey as an issue. Do you get it? And so that's where it was lacking. But even with the, so you look at the impact.
No, wait, Kweku, you wanted to say something. What did that question lack?
Well, as you're saying, Galamsey is a big issue.
Yes.
But the journalists wanted to find out whether the president is committed, the commitment of the president. And note that even in asking the question, the journalist sort of even gave an indication that he already knows the answer. And the president, in answering, actually said that, well, you actually said that. In your question. Exactly. So is the president's commitment is not in question. It's not in doubt. It's never been a debate. The debate is the Galamsey itself. So the direction of his question, ripped it of the relevance and the punch that, it would have
It just gives the politician the opportunity to wax rhetorical, to engage.
But the president took substantial time in answering that and went on and about how
because you played it to
his gallery. Yeah, so you get a point, Right. But you compare that to a question like the one that Mr. Avle asked from CDFM, and then you look at on all the indicators. Okay, let's say the relevance of the question, public interest. Of course, the national debt is always a big issue of national interest. You look at the national debate. Yes, I mean this was a government which rode on the back of reducing the public debt, and all of that. And so, I mean,
the impact is also
impact. Of course, the debt affects all of us.
Accruing, not just people alive, but those who will come.
Generations after.
So the impact is huge. You look at it, whether it's topical or it's trending. They went to China. I mean,
whether what we got from China is a loan
or is a leverage,
a levy, a debt.
I'm not an economist, but anyway, you know those issues were trending. And then you look at the specificity of the question. It was very specific because it looked at a single issue, which was the issue of national debt. You look at the what do you call it? Whether it was the background, whether it was not a winding question. It was very straightforward, and so it had focus.
He gave statistics, figures,
to give it punch. As well.
And so the politician has no way to run away. You being caught up to deal with
within a specific area to deal with that one. There was also the question about what they were doing about education. There was a question about education, and some experts in the education field felt the president didn't give much attention to that and actually just went around the fact that, yes, they are committed to ensuring that the free senior high school policy or agenda they intended to undertake was going to work. Do you think, how would you rate that question in terms of relevance and reach and importance to...
So I'll let him have that since I did the agenda in the other ones.
So when we look at the issue of education, of course, the journalists mentioned that we all know it's one of the things that the government touted coming into office, and the free senior high school is one of its flagship programs that it's putting in place. So, I mean, I think that the journalist was right in saying that, I mean, this seemed to be your main issue that you've been touting, but is missing in the presentation. We don't expect that this will be a State of Nation address, but we expect that certain key things, especially when it's about 2 months away, and the question that he asked, I think is a question that we all want to know, because there was talk about cutoff.
A cutoff point, yes.
A cutoff point. And the question he asked was, well, we are going to have access to free education, and the government even wants to make basic education up to the secondary level, right? So then if there's a cutoff, it means that some people are going to be denied even at that level. So I think that it was a very relevant question. And the president, in answering, somehow we gave an indication that I think he mentioned something like, I understand, and people are saying maybe the president wasn't on top of the issue, and all that. So I think that question brought an important issue about access and how the government is going to deal with
that. Doc, which other questions do you think were of national interest, and those that probably you'd say were too personal?
Right.
They didn't carry enough weight to get national attention.
Well, I would say, so we had a question about the national debt. Maybe top 3 or 4 will be the one about the national debt. the one about education. So it looks like you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question about sanitation,
Yes.
the one from Metro TV, there was just some specific.
Hour open defecation. There were those who thought that it was quite unnecessary, because why then do we have a minister in charge of environment and sanitation? At least even a chief director at the ministry could answer that. So why would you carry such a question to the president?
Well, I think that our reputation globally and continentally, as far as open defecation is concerned, is not one to write home about. And you know, the power of the presidency, the bully pulpit, you know, it's a very big one. Sometimes you have the chief directors, you have the ministers, but when the issue is not sufficiently resolved, you feel as if that you do need the power behind the presidency to be able to push it through. And I think that is something that really, really, really lies at it. I mean, this is a president who is very committed about, I mean, beautification of the capital city and all of that. And you see, it's something that you cannot miss once you land in the country. You know, the dumps, the heaps, you know, a major, I mean, aspect of our national life. And so, and then he linked it up to one of the sewage projects as well. So I think that was quite specific. And then the issue about I think it was Wilberforce who asked something about the court, the state attorneys, and then the law school issue.
In answering that, the president actually got the Attorney General to speak to it. What would you say the relevance of that question, especially to the times, and the fact that it was quite topical for media houses to follow through up until the fact that the students wanted to boycott? So it's been in media discussion for some time. So in rating that question, you thought it was relevant, it was punchy, it was straight to the point?
Yeah, top 5 or 6 or 7.
The legal question was
and even the one about the is it the ambulance, the provision of ambulances. You know, I think it was quite specific. There were some figures or facts to back it up, you know, and so there was a good background to that question. So some of those questions were really focused.
What should and in wrapping up, so Kweku take his bite on it, then Doc, you can wrap it up for us. Sure. What should journalists do when you get such opportunities to ask the president questions? One, here are the parameters. You know you have a single question to ask within a specific time. You don't have the chance of a follow-up. So in that score, how do you craft your question to make sure that it is direct and gets the kind of answer you want?
So I think that journalists know that these exercises, you have one shot. And so we're talking to one of our colleagues who said, some of the journalists said, oh, they thought they would have the opportunity to have a second follow-up and all that. I think that we have done this exercise for some time now. We know we should know how it looks like. So even if you have follow-up, you may want to put your best foot forward. So you ask the most important question, just in case you don't get the opportunity to do a follow-up. So I think that journalists should be very prepared. The question that we are going to ask, we should have some research around the question. It's okay to ask a question, but it's more important to ask the question and give it punch and direction. You know, you can make a very mundane issue, bring it, give it some focus by, for instance, if there's statistics. Let's take, for instance, the
issue about
the Galamsey. Is it a Galamsey?
Yeah. Well, there was the Galamsey, and then there was the issue about
health as well.
Yeah, district assemblies, and then Kennedy Chupong, and then there was another one about he's wild. The president is wild. Yeah, and well, he has been tamed. And then there was a Galamsey issue too.
Yeah. So for instance, we all know Galamsey is very, very, you know, devastating and everything. Yeah. People have heard of it. So in asking a question, do you provide some statistics? The landmass that have been, you know, washed away, and that, you know, I think that gives it punch and gives it more direction. And brings it home.
Right, Doc. Wrapping up.
I mean, just to add to it, you know, I mean, I don't know, you know, a press conference is one of the tools that the presidents use to communicate to the general public, not just the president. So it's one of the tools of political communication. But then that particular platform is meant for certain kind of questions that are urgent. Questions that are very, very critical. I mean, that is not a time to go and be asking.
Who determines a critical question?
Well, I mean, I think we all know, even the general public, and that's why we came up with that criteria.
Okay.
Yeah, I
it's
think
not something that is done on a whim.
Yeah. You know, it has to have a public and national interest. The impact has to be there. You know what the kind of impact that it has. And so I think when the chance is had to ask those questions, they are asking it on behalf of the Ghanaian people, the farmers in the villages who have been attacked by army worms and other issues. Would want those questions to be asked.
Certainly,
and
I'm
not
sure
to praise the president. Just praise the president.
A lot of journalists are watching us right now and putting pen to paper the critical questions that they need to ask, because it looks like the president might do this again, hopefully by end of year or early next year. Thank you very much, Dr. H.A.C. Kanku, communications expert and lecturer, and then also Kweku Botre. He is a broadcast journalism lecturer at NAFTI and a researcher as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is still news.